Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Hey guys, Nikki from NAB Show Live, and I'm here with Wes Donahue from TVLogic. How's it going?
Good.
Yeah. Show's treating you well?
Very good. Yep, great show.
Great. Tell us what's new with TVLogic and what you're showing at. I see some monitors behind me. What are you showing this year at NAB?
Well, we're pretty excited. We've got 4 brand new displays this year, and one of them that we're really happy to be bringing out here at NAB is our brand new VFM 055A. What this is a 5.5 inch HD, full HD resolution, organic LED display. This is our first onboard viewfinder monitor that uses an organic LED panel. And for those people that aren't really that familiar with what organic LED is, most panels in monitors are LCD, that's liquid crystal diode. An LCD monitor always has a constant backlight source behind it. And the only way they can shutter that down to get black is just to close the liquid crystal, but light always leaks through. So what that means is you're never going to get real true black. Right. But with organic LED, each pixel is the actual light source. So if you want black, you just turn off the pixel. So what you get with that is a much wider contrast ratio and higher dynamic range. And that is the precise reason why we decided to go with an OLED as opposed to another LCD. So this OLED's not a high bright display at all, but it's a high dynamic range display. So what we can do with that then is not only are you going to get really vivid color, very wide contrast, it's 17,000 to 1 contrast ratio, but you also get the ability, and this will be in a future firmware update that comes out after the monitor's release sometime in July, that will allow you to apply an HDR emulation LUT. And why we call it an emulation LUT is that since the max brightness of the display is about 350 nit, that's not really that bright. It's a standard brightness, but it's not a high brightness in terms of dynamic range. But what you can do, since the panel has the capability to show everything from the darkest dark all the way up to 350 nit, is you can map that tone, that color tonal map across an HDR lookup table. So you can see what it's supposed to look like in HDR without the brightness, and that's why we call it an emulation LUT. And the reason we did that is because cameras that are coming out here at the show and in the future are going to have HDR lookup tables built into them. Or they're going to apply them, the DIT will apply them, and sometimes the camera operator or even the guys that are doing other things, using this as a director's monitor or whatever, they're going to want to see that HDR look. So that's why we use it.
Very cool. And you said this bad boy's coming out in July?
Yeah, it should be released to the public in July.
Cool. All right, let's see some more stuff.
So this is a new 17-inch QC broadcast monitor. This is called the LVM 171S. We actually have 4 different models that use this same panel. This is probably the best 17-inch panel we've ever found. It is a full HD, 1920 by 1080 native resolution, native 10-bit. A lot of panels these days are not 10-bit. This is true 10-bit, which means you're not going to get any color banding and stuff from not having enough colors available on the screen. So that's 1.07 billion colors that are available for that panel to make.
That picture is amazing.
Yeah, and it's got great viewing angle, off axis, and so what we did with this particular model is, this is I would say the top of the line, the one that has everything in it. It's got LKFS loudness monitoring, which is a great feature for broadcasters. It's got the ability to load and import and export 3D lookup tables. So if you use this on a DIT cart and you've got somebody that's actually creating LUTs with Resolve or something like that, those can be loaded directly into the monitor on the USB port and then saved to memory, so you don't have to have that Resolve running it all the time, or you don't have to hook a LUT box to it to load it. You can load it directly in. It has an upgraded waveform and vector scope at higher resolution and color. So we just basically threw it all in.
Yeah,
the whole pack. And so this one will ship beginning in September, and the list price on it in the United States is about $37.25. What we're looking at here is a 55-inch organic LED. And this is a HDR monitor as well, meaning that it is capable of high dynamic range imaging. This particular panel will get out to 750 nit for peak luminance. So the way we're positioning this in the marketplace professionally is that it's a HDR 4K QC monitor. And we're not calling it a reference monitor, but just a quality control monitor. So the way to think of this is that if you first master your material on an HDR reference monitor, and then you master it for Blu-ray or streaming, whatever you're going to do with it, and you put it into its HDR 10 or Dolby Vision 10, whatever that mode is going to be for the final audience to look at, that's what you're going to look at on here. So this could either be what you call the client monitor or the QC monitor. At the end of the post-process, you want to see your final output. But this is not something that we would market to companies to use as the reference monitor or the color grading display. And it's not because it doesn't have great color and perform really, really well. It's mostly because organic LED panels of this size have a built-in limitation about standard luminance. And what I mean by that is that if in the area of the picture where it's very, very bright, if that area is small, like a little square in the middle of the screen, the white point will be at one point. But when that gets really big and it takes up most of the screen, the white point gets compressed. It actually lowers the luminance. And it does that to save the actual power that's going to the panel. But that is not a feature that we can override. It's native to the way the panel works. So much like plasma displays that did the same thing, as they got really bright, the luminance would drop down. As a color grading artist, you can't have to deal with that. If you have to deal with floating white point, it's really not useful to you. So we know that we're going to solve that problem in the future, and then maybe we'll call that a reference monitor then. Right. But now we're calling it a QC HDR, display. And that doesn't mean people won't use it for grading, but we're not telling them that it's perfect.
Right.
Because we have one that is.
So what are we looking at here in the dark room?
Okay, so why we set this up in a kind of a darkened tint is that what we're trying to show is the difference between our current 31-inch 4K display that's standard dynamic range, which has been available for a couple of years, right? And our new HDR reference monitor. And as you, it may not be that easy to see with a camera, but it certainly is with the eye.
You can definitely see it.
There's a huge difference in not just luminance, but color and saturation, everything. And the reason that is that this is a completely different backlight system than the standard dynamic range unit. Because as I mentioned before, with the organic LED models, that pixel on an organic LED is an emissive light source all to itself. But with these, there's a light source behind the LCD panel. So the question is, how do you create this wide dynamic range, high brightness in the highlight areas, but still make that that butterfly's wing that's black stay black? How do you do that? Well, the way you do that is that you have a backlight array of over 2,000 individual LEDs, and those are dimmed real time to match what's going on in the picture. So in the areas of darkness, the LEDs behind that are dimmed down dark. The areas of brightness, they're bright. And that all happens in real time. And so in order to do that, you have to have a fairly sophisticated algorithm that analyzes the picture that's on the screen as it's coming in, and in real time changes that backlight constantly to match that.
And this is what you said out there you'd refer to as a reference monitor.
Right. The reason why this is a reference display is because the peak luminance on this is 2,000 nit. So to date, there's been no display ever released by any company that can get that bright with a high dynamic range image. So this is going to be designed specifically for mastering 4K high dynamic range content for either motion picture or for television release. And so at 2,000 nit, for example, nobody makes a television that goes out to 2,000 nit. But the reason why you want to master at that is to future-proof, so that maybe down the road when that's available, you already have a master that you can now create a new Blu-ray or a new streaming title or something at higher brightness. So you master with this, and then you output to whatever your output format is, and you use that other one to look at it on what's it supposed to look like on the TV at home. So that's the ecosystem, if you will.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Wes. Make sure you come to TVLogic and check out all these products and the many, many more you have. Really cool stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is Nikki with NAB Show Live.